already in 1837, when Colonel William Light planned and established the street grids of Adelaide, this capital of this new British colony of South Australia, there were some provisions of botanic gardens on the outskirts. And by 1855, they were already established at the current site, only a short walk from the central business district. Let's go in.
A planned park with plants from near and far was a marker of a civilised society that the populace could utilise for learning and leisure. It's a place of respite from the hustle and bustle of the city life. The city was established on the land of the Kaurna people, on the banks of Krämer, the River Torrens as it's also known, according to the traditions of colonisation at the time. The swampy river region was abundant in wildlife and resources supporting the people living there. Although some of the Kaurna people lived a semi-traditional life in the Parklands for decades after the British came, they were displaced from the bands of the actual Botanic Gardens, making areas of cultural significance inaccessible. Initially, the garden was not quite living up to its intended function, partly due to a lack of funding, but things changed when Richard Schomburgk assumed directorship in 1865, coinciding with increasing prosperity in the colony. He was a German immigrant and an enthusiastic botanist, researcher and teacher, interested in all fields, including economic and exotic plants. The ambitious visionary made marks to the Botanic Gardens that are highly visible still today. In 1868, he opened the first heated greenhouse in Australia and was successful in having the Amazonian giant water lily bloom. However, a few years later, the wooden construction was already showing signs of rot, and the construction has today been replaced by a modern pavilion. Having heard about a delicate glass house with an iron skeleton in his native Germany, he requested the plans and soon engaged the architect, Gustav Runge, to design a similar house for him. Funds were quickly raised, and in only 2 years it had been prefabricated in Germany and shipped to Adelaide in 2 consignments, as many of the glass panes had been broken during the first voyage. Awaiting the palm house's arrival, an artificial mound had been built using fill material from excavations around the park's ponds. This was to avoid damage to the building, especially the partly buried coke-burning tubular boiler during floodings. A foundation of local rock and bricks extending through the mound to firm ground was made ready, as were the required masonry columns required by Runge's plans, upon which the prefabricated superstructure could be placed. This came in the shape of cast iron columns that transmitted the weight of a complex array of wrought iron trusses, rails and mullions. The glass paints were finally secured on a second shipment, and once glazed and planted with exotic palms and other tropical plants, the house was opened in the presence of Adelaide's elite by the governor's wife, Lady Musgrave, who, following the national anthem, stated, "This splendid palm house has crowned our gardens with a beauty, I may say a magnificence, which all Adelaide will appreciate with pride." The building lines neatly up with the city street grid, as it's placed along an almost perfect east-west axis, which also maximizes its exposure to solar light and heat. Although Schomburgk wisely predicted the need for dual glazing, as he had seen in its German sister building, in order to reduce the burden of the hot summers here rather than the winters though, it was only designed with single glazing. The northernmost plants soon suffered from burns, so the northern glass facade was lime-washed and equipped with curtains and blinds to reduce this.
Stately elevated, backlit by the sun, completely symmetrical. When approaching from the south, the building itself makes a delicate aesthetic impression that's designed to cause delight and anticipation. Let's go. In the words of the architect appointed to disassemble, renovate, restore and reassemble this corroding structure in the 1990s, Bruce Harry, the glass house as an architectural building type in its own right is pure form, with all structural members visible and as integral an element of the composition as the plants themselves. This was form indivisible from function.
Built at the peak of German and British glasshouse technology development, the delicate structure must have impressed at a time when most buildings were made of masonry or wood. The glass walls have very little vertical rigidity, as the glazing bars hang off a continuous eaves rail. This very early example of a curtain wall, together with a lightweight, slender internal iron skeleton, in fact bears a significant resemblance to modern high-rise buildings, allowing for a minimum of obstructions to the sun's rays. Once inside, you can feel the delightful warmth on the skin. The plants and the lack of moving air makes an acoustically quiet space where you automatically lower your voice and wander around, exploring the otherworldly looking plants from Madagascar. The transition reminds me of the experience of awe, calmness and serenity when entering a city cathedral. A space within the city. The Palm House fulfills its function not only as a homage to botany and science, but also that of respite and inspiration. On the 27th of September this year of 2024, the Botanic Gardens opened its exhibition of glass sculptures by globally renowned Seattle-based Dale Chihuly. Like with the Palm House, this was a first for Australia. And also, like the Palm House, the glass was actually shipped to our continent on boats, this time without breakages. The Botanic Gardens and the Palm House continues to remain relevant for us all 150 years later, as both a scientific, cultural and recreational institution. And with the right maintenance, development and leadership, hopefully also in the 150 years to come.